This is an ABP Life podcast.
Modern age, modern time. Today, every single person wants to live an independent life. No restrictions, no hassle. Just living in the moment and doing whatever gives them happiness. We see the West, basically the American society. We admire them, especially the millennials. The millennials crave for a life much like theirs, just to live their lives the way they want, no questions asked. But in India, we are still in the process of achieving that. Slowly but steadily. Now, one thing that Indian millennials have adapted smoothly is living in. The living in culture is suddenly on the rise lately. Nowadays, couples often opt for living in, and it's quite normalized in our society now. Now, about live-in relationships, the Supreme Court had earlier said that if a man and a woman lived like husband and wife for a long period and they had children, then the judiciary would presume that the two were married. And now on Thursday, in a landmark judgment, the Supreme Court said that all women are entitled to safe and legal abortion irrespective of marital status. So what does the landmark judgment say? What's the difference between a married and an unmarried woman? And what are the reproductive rights of an individual? Let's decode all of this today. So welcome to Clear Cut, only on ABP Live podcast. This is your newsman Rudrashish, and today let's talk about Supreme Court's judgment on the abortion rights of unmarried women. So on Thursday, the Supreme Court said that all women are entitled to safe and legal abortion irrespective of marital status. Now, according to reports from news agencies, the Apex Court held that the marital status of a woman cannot be ground to deprive her right to abort unwanted pregnancy. Single and unmarried women have the right to abort the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act and rules till 24 weeks of pregnancy. The Supreme Court bench noted that the meaning of rape must be held, including marital rape, for purpose of the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. It further said that the distinction between married and unmarried women artificial and constitutionally unsustainable as it perpetuates the stereotype that only married women indulge in sexual activities. This judgment comes after the Supreme Court in July allowed a pregnant unmarried woman to abort her 24-week fetus. By passing the order, the Apex Court had sought a report from All India Institute of Medical Sciences on safe abortion of pregnancy and directed to form a team of 2 experts to report on whether abortion is possible without harming the girl. Whereas the Delhi High Court in its order on July 16 refused to grant permission to terminate the pregnancy, that was 23 weeks then, on grounds that it violated the abortion law. According to the MTP Act, unmarried women are however allowed to undergo medical termination of pregnancy of up to 24 weeks. The petitioner, a 25-year-old woman, had appealed to the court to terminate the pregnancy on grounds that her partner, with whom she was in a relationship, had refused to marry her. She also stressed that the birth of the child could cause her physical agony, as well as social stigma. The pregnancy had arisen out of a consensual relationship. Now, to distinguish between married and unmarried women, the presiding judge of the bench, Justice Chandrachud, said, if Rule 3BC is understood as only for married women, it would perpetuate the stereotype that only married women indulge in sexual activities. This is not constitutionally sustainable. The artificial distinction between married and unmarried women cannot be sustained. Women must have autonomy to have free exercises of these rights. The rights of reproductive autonomy gives an unmarried woman the similar rights as a married woman. Now coming to the reproductive rights of a woman. The decision to carry or terminate a pregnancy is totally up to the woman because the fetus completely relies on the woman's body to sustain itself. Therefore, a woman cannot be forced to carry an unwanted pregnancy to the full term. The court also emphasized that the laws must be adapted to the changing social norms. When the MTP Act was first enacted in 1971, it was mainly concentrated on married women. But now, the society has evolved. The definition of a traditional family has evolved. So we have to change the laws as well. The Supreme Court has rightly pointed out that with the change in society, we have to change ourselves as well. And by the change, I mean the change in laws, the change in the ways we think, and the change in our traditional values. And only then we can evolve as a society. And now we have senior advocate and managing partner from TRS Law Office, Talish joining us on the show today to give us a clear-cut take on this issue.
So welcome to Clear Cut, ma'am. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me over. It's always lovely to talk to you.
Pleasure, ma'am. So, ma'am, the Supreme Court passed a landmark judgment on Thursday on the adoption rights of unmarried women. What's your take on this? How do you see it? Is this a step in the right direction?
Oh, absolutely. It's completely landmark because when you keep in mind the current geopolitical environment the world over, where reproductive rights of women are concerned, because if you look at the recent overturning of the Roe versus Wade judgment in the US,
exactly,
which took away these very same reproductive rights, to see this expansive sort of a judgment which recognizes the right of women, and in this, one of the best part is that the judgment itself, somewhere in the middle as it starts to talk about the reasoning, not just recognizes women, but it recognizes women inconsequential of marital status. It also includes CIS women. So there's a very, very expansive judgment in that sense. So in this judgment, there are a whole bunch of corporates that are done away with, including whether it is dealing with the subject of marital rape within the definition of rape under the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. So it's a very far-reaching judgment.
So, ma'am, the court has highlighted the difference between a married woman and an unmarried woman. So, can you help us understand the legal difference, the legal point of view between an unmarried woman and a married woman?
So, simply put like this, see, marriage is an institution that is socially performed under various religious laws or under the Special Marriage Act. Anyone who goes under that is recognized as a married person. Now, if that person happens to be a woman, then that is a married woman. In this case, because they are talking about the reproductive rights of women, they have recognized the fact that it doesn't matter whether it is a married woman or an unmarried woman, which is to say that the petitioner in this case, for example, had actually moved in as an unmarried woman who had a consensual relationship, but at whatever stage she decided that she wanted to terminate her pregnancy. And the court has upheld her rights, saying that if we look at the medical termination of pregnancy rules that have come about, then it takes into account the physical as well as the mental well-being of the to-be mother. And in this case, that is the only thing that needs to be looked into rather than marital status or reading the fact that people have a body of rights that emerge through reproductive rights only if they are married. So in that sense, it has done away with that differentiation. So currently the law, as it stands interpreted, is that it doesn't matter whether you are a married person or an unmarried person. If you choose to go in for a termination of pregnancy subject to the rules and the act, then you have every right to access it through a recognized process.
Ma'am, I'm going to highlight a term from your answer, reproductive rights of a woman. What are the reproductive rights of a woman?
So, there is a reproductive rights of a woman actually come out from human rights. What is the reproductive right of a woman is the right to have bodily autonomy, to choose how to have a child, when to have a child, how to take care of health, access to contraception, access to medical termination. All of these come within the body of rights which are loosely linked in and called reproductive rights. But basically, it is the right to, it gets read under the right to life, which is a human right recognized the world over. So the term reproductive right is, as per my understanding, includes a whole body of rights that come to women in terms of, and also in a lot of cases, it also comes to any human being. So it can be read for men as well, but for women specific about the right when to have a child, how to have a child, how indeed to deal with their reproductive functions.
All right. And ma'am, my last question for you is, do you think these sensitive laws, for example, the reproduction laws, should change from time to time according to the changes in society? I mean, should the definition of a traditional marriage change from time to time as well?
Laws are a reflection, and laws also take into account how the society is emerging. In fact, in this judgment itself, the honorable wise judges have dealt with the fact that when we are looking at the concept of marriage, when we are looking at the concept of sexual rights, when we are looking at the various ways to deal with reproductive rights, they themselves have talked about the fact that we need to be very aware and sensitive to a society that is there and move forward and keep up with the times and look up to addressing the various voids that may come up in case the laws are not updated. So as such, laws are reflective of the time, and that's why you have a court which interprets those laws in keeping with what is the need for the society.
Well, in a nutshell, then the Supreme Court's verdict is a step in the right direction for everyone.
Oh, it's a leap in the right direction. It's a judgment that for a long time to come will actually establish us as a country which takes its women's rights very, very seriously.
Absolutely, ma'am. Well, ma'am, thank you so much for your precious time. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
So that's all the news and scoops I have for you today. Today's episode was produced by Lalit. This is your newsman Rudrashish Kanjilal signing off. Have a great day ahead and keep listening to ABP Live podcasts.
This is an ABP Live podcast.